Welcome back to our Pig Trail Show. Ailey Weiss alongside Kevin McPherson for the Hogs Hoop Report for this week. And we got an exciting week because the Razorbacks got a really big win yesterday against a top 20 Texas Tech team that gave this team some trouble in the first half, especially JT Toppin down low. He was really bullying the guys in the paint, to say the least. And then the second half, they made the adjustments that they needed to and got the win, the 93 to 86 point win.
Yeah, I mean, Arkansas trailed by as many as 10 points in that first half, actually took a lead with about a minute and a half on a Carter Knox three, went up 43-42. Mm-hmm. And then you saw the last minute and a half, it was all Texas Tech, a 7-0 run, go up by 6. And then Arkansas looked like one of those games where Arkansas was going to be in it till the end. You just weren't sure if Arkansas's resiliency would go from being resilient enough to be close to being overcoming adversity, overcoming a deficit, taking a lead, and then holding a lead. And that's what Arkansas did. If you look early in the year against Michigan State and Duke, Arkansas was resilient. They could have folded their tents when they got behind, by double digits, whatever. But Arkansas, found ways to build their own leads. They just couldn't sustain it in the end. I think execution, decision-making, all those things were questionable and shaky for Arkansas in those games. You look at when Louisville ended, and then now this game against Texas Tech, two ranked teams, Arkansas's made the right plays at the end. They're playing to their strengths more, but also showing poise. You can be resilient up until the point where you're no longer poised at the very end, right? And I think Arkansas's resiliency and toughness has taken another step because they're making better decisions late in games, and that helps them execute. When you play to your strengths and you're making good decisions, your chances of finishing plays and executing those plays increases. And I think sometimes it's as simple as that. It's not like Arkansas overnight became a better team than they necessarily were a few weeks ago. They are improved, but it's not vast. I think it's just subtle things at the end of games against good teams. And some of it may not seem that subtle. I mean, a guy like Darius Akuff is on a mission right now. He's playing with such poise and control with that talent. He's very measured with talent, which is very interesting. He doesn't get too high or too low. We could talk about so many different players. Trevon Brazil, what a beast. Carter Knox and his get right game. And I'm sure we'll get into the individual stuff, but I think right now Arkansas's matching resiliency and raising itself with execution and poise at the end of games.
Yep, and you already kind of talked about it a little bit, but Coach Cal's been telling us all season that he scheduled these games tough in the beginning of the season, the Michigan State game, the Duke game, because he wants his guys to learn lessons and learn how to control themselves towards the end of a game. And you've seen it paid off against Louisville, and now you've seen it pay off against a really good Texas Tech team. But what did you like from Arkansas's defense yesterday? Because I feel like I saw a pretty big improvement from their perimeter D.
Well, it happened. It had to happen in the second half because the first half, Texas Tech got what it wanted inside and out. Arkansas never really contained Toppin until a few important plays at the end, where I thought Trevon Brazil was the better player out of the two as the game closed. And if it's a close game, you want to be the better man at the end. But the perimeter defense in the second half really held Texas Tech in check. Red Raiders 8 of 15, well over 50% in the first half. Second half, 5 of 16, down in the 30s. 31%. And so Arkansas's perimeter defense much better in the second half. And you had to take something away, I think, to beat that team because they were so good inside and out in the first half. Yet this speaks to the quality of Arkansas's roster, the fact that Arkansas was right there, despite how good and how it seemed at times unstoppable Texas Tech was in those first 20 minutes. I mean, 49-43 at halftime. It was a score fest, and it really kind of ended that way. But Arkansas got one better and scored 50 in the second half and held Texas Tech to 37. And so plus 13 in the second half. You're right, Ailey. I'm glad you brought up the defense because everybody's going to look at this game and see the shooting percentages overall, and they're going to say there was no defense. Actually, Arkansas's defense bowed up in the second half. Perimeter defense, forcing turnovers, pressuring full court, getting the turnovers up, and then getting out in transition and really escalating the transition. Part of that's feeding off your defense because you got to get stops. It's easier to run when you're getting live ball turnovers and or defensive rebounds than it is to push after a made basket. In Arkansas, both teams had 4 fast break points at halftime. Second half, Arkansas blanks Texas Tech in fast break scoring 14-0. We can look at the free throw line disparity, big advantage Arkansas. We can look at some other stuff where Arkansas got even and even won rebounding and offensive rebounding, second chance points. But I think the defensive effort in the second half, even though the overall stats don't reflect it, the second half stats do, whereas Arkansas kind of did what it wanted to offensively. Again, 50 points in the second half. That's a lot. And so I'm glad you brought up defense because most people are thinking there wasn't any, and Arkansas did a good job in that second half.
Offense starts with defense, and you're getting turnovers. You're running the other team basically out of the gym. Arkansas is number 2 in the country in fast break points. I believe they average about 22 points a game. So even yesterday, they weren't even hitting their average mark of what they typically score in their fast break points. So that just says something to the testament of the potential of this Hogs team. But let's dive into some of those key players from yesterday. First guy we got to talk about is Trevon Brazil. You already touched on him a little bit.
Oh, wow. What a game. 24 points, one off his career high, 10 rebounds, so a double-double. But the second half, we just talked about how Arkansas had to change some things and get better defensively. How about offensively, though? Because you got to score points, and this guy starts hitting threes. He's getting putbacks. He had a nice ball fake on the perimeter, drove in and got a hammer slam, made all his free throws, but 24 points was a team high. 18 of those, Haley, in the second half, 14 of those in the last 9 minutes. And Arkansas outscores in the last 9 minutes Texas Tech 30-18. So you win by 7, you outscore them by 12. That's what flipped the game. So you're getting more stops on defense. You're kind of cutting off the 3-point shooting a little bit. And then on the offensive end, and it wasn't just Brazil, but it was mainly him when you looked at the offense. Again, 14, almost half of those 30 points in that extended run. But then it was the defensive plays as well. He had 10 rebounds in this game. He had 5 of those in that final 9 minutes. So, 3/4 of the game, he got half his rebounds, less than a quarter at the end, he got the other half. Some on the offensive end, some to close out some really tough good defensive possessions where we know Texas Tech is elite on the offensive glass, and they hurt Arkansas a lot in this game there. Brazil started to take some of that away. He had a big block shot with just under a minute right at the rim when Tech was trying to stay within striking distance. Defensively, offensively, Trevon Brazil was the MVP of this game, and Arkansas had a couple of more players that were great and had a huge impact. You don't win without them. But if I'm picking an MVP because of the impact at both ends, especially in that closing stretch where Arkansas really flipped the script and looked like the superior team, so much of that was Trevon Brazil.
Coach Cal talking about how proud of Brazil he is because he's been a leader for this team, right? But he's been more of a non-vocal leader. And then lately, he's been speaking up in practice, and he's been kind of not just leading by example because he's clearly doing that. We see what he did yesterday. But he's also being vocal and getting all the guys hyped up and doing those things that a true leader and a true captain does. So Cal said that that's been helping not only him improve his game, but everybody else. And you see it was impacting some other players because the next guy we're going to talk about, Darius Akuff Jr.
He's almost like a Terminator right now offensively. He is because his facial expressions don't change, and he's got a look about him like you just don't want to run up against him really. And there's not much folks are able to do about it. He got off to a slow start. I thought Texas Tech did a good job early defensively against Arkansas's guards. They were using quickness and just good defensive principles and scouting Arkansas and stopped a lot of penetration. Really, the first guard for Arkansas that showed any ability to penetrate was DJ Wagner a couple of times. But Akuff went out, sat out for a while, came back in and scored 7 straight points for Arkansas. Now he was off and running. He was facilitating, making some good passes. But look, the guy finishes with 20 points, another 8 assists or better game. 3 in a row, he's had 8 or more assists. We know he had a double-double against Louisville, 17 and 10. He's had back-to-back games now with 8 assists, but he scored 20 points. Efficient game for him again when you look at it across the board. When you look at shooting numbers, but 4 big rebounds. He's rebounding at the guard spot. He's minimizing 34 minutes, only 2 turnovers, a 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. But I talked about that run at the end of the game, and he's not only getting buckets, going right at this point, he's going right at Texas Tech's guards. I mean, taking them carrying him with him to the basket and going right at him. He had a nice little floater game, a little pull up early in the second half on the baseline from about 17 feet. I think it was the first bucket of the second half for either team. But and then he's been efficient. He's a 42+% shooter from three this year, and he was 40% yesterday. But at the end of the game, we talked about Brazil and some of the others and their scoring. This guy was getting the ball to him on time, on target, and because he can score, Akuff, it's hard to defend him because you got to figure he's picking and choosing. If you close on him to prevent a shot, he's going to set somebody else up. Or if you send help, he's going to make the pass on time and on target. And now you've got a numbers advantage. And we saw Brazil against a smaller, outside of Toppin, a small Texas Tech team. So when Arkansas got him switching or off, a little bit out of position, Akuff made those passes perfectly. And we saw him feeding Ewan. We saw him try to feed Pringle, who struggled in the game. But he's just a great setup guy on top of being a primary scorer. I mean, he's one of the best point guards in the country. The last the last three games, and it includes Louisville, Fresno State, and now this one, Darius Akuff Jr., 18.3 points, 8.7 assists, and 4.7 rebounds, and his shooting numbers are all highly efficient. I don't know what more you could ask for him. Right. Now, defensively, he's still a work in progress. Some of those defensive assignments, and most true freshmen are. But on the offensive end, this guy's about as good as anybody in the country, and he's so steady right now. You're just not seeing these wild up and down games from him. And then the decision making at the end of games has been really, really good. It's as much a reason, even as what Brazil's doing, why Arkansas's turning a corner. And I think you can make a case that these guys are co-MVPs of the season so far for a team that jumped inside the top 20 in net, by the way. Arkansas came in today 8-2 record at 19th. We'll see if they move up in the polls. They're 17th ranked in AP. We'll see if that changes on Monday.
I'm glad you brought up that point about his defense, because there was a stretch in the game, kind of, I guess, a short stretch, but it felt kind of long. It was about 10 seconds, but Arkansas got called for about 3 fouls. What do you see from that defense right there? Because we were just talking about how we've seen their defense improve, but it feels like they kind of slip back into their old habits sometimes.
Well, they do. I mean, they had a possession where Texas Tech gets a bucket, and in the middle of that play, they get called for a foul, and Tech gets to keep possession of the ball after just scoring, and they end up getting an offensive rebound, and then they score again, and 4-point possession. So sometimes it's not only these little cluster plays, but I think it's part of being a team that's aggressive. Arkansas has advantages, especially yesterday, in size, in many cases athleticism. They just got a nice – and so when you're playing a brand of basketball that's trying to utilize all of that physical and athletic talent, sometimes you're going to have some fouling in there, especially the more aggressive you are. But Arkansas ends up shooting 26 free throws, only 10 for Texas Tech. So I don't have a lot of beef today with Arkansas's fouling problems.
Okay.
But you're right. Sometimes it's not how much, it's when.
Yeah.
And Arkansas had a lot of problems for a while yesterday until it didn't. Couldn't get out of its own way. Untimely fouls, a sequence of stuff like you just mentioned. Maybe it was, even though Arkansas didn't turn the ball over a whole lot, 7 turnovers, but maybe it was just untimely turnover. There were 50-50 balls you thought Arkansas should have beaten Texas Tech to, and they couldn't bring it in, and Tech gets it, and then one pass, and they got a wide open 3, and they hit it. You think Arkansas actually defended well, gave itself a chance. A couple of missed dunks after a steal. I mean, those kinds of things. So when you bring up little cluster fouls and things like that, yeah, sometimes it's what gets in Arkansas's way, but at the end, Arkansas was really the superior team. I looked at all the stats. Arkansas won just about every important category, including offensive rebound. I mean, this was an elite offensive rebounding team. Arkansas won that category, won the second chance points. It was narrow. The victory for Arkansas points in the paint was narrow, but they blew out the fast break scoring. They doubled up Texas Tech and points off turnovers 10-5, and they shot 16 more free throws. And as poorly as Arkansas was at the line, shooting only 65%, this was a team that came in 78%, Ailey, Arkansas, on the season. That's elite, top 20 in the NCAA, Division I. 65%. Only thing is, on the other side of the ball, Texas Tech took only 10 free throws and made only 3. It
Mm-hmm.
was a bad free throw shooting team coming in at like
Yep.
66, 67%. They hit 30 on only 10 attempts. Arkansas dominated the free throw line as well in that game, even though the score is only 7 points
Yep.
and you trailed for 32 minutes of that game. At the end of the day, Arkansas checked almost all the boxes when you look at the head-to-head comparisons.
And especially with those free throws, that's just Arkansas being diligent and doing their homework and finding out what guys you need to foul to put at the free throw line so that they miss their free throws. They were talking about that a little bit in the post-game press conference. But one more guy that we have to talk about, we can't snub him and not talk about him because he had a heck of a game the last time that they played Texas Tech when they lost in the Sweet 16 and then came back. We kind of talked about this being somewhat of a revenge game, but not, and not focusing too much on that because that's not going to do anybody any good, right? Like, yes, okay, what happened last season, and that's definitely a chip you can put on your shoulder. But coming into the game this weekend, that's not, these two teams are very different now. You can't keep that. That can't be your complete motivation. And Carter Knox, man, had himself a heck of a game.
He did, and what's interesting is we could have talked about him first.
Mm-hmm.
That's how good he was. As good as Akuff and Brazil are and have been consistently, Knox hasn't been that, but we know it's in him.
Yep.
He's got a couple of double-doubles this season. He got those against some of those bye-win teams. Of course, in basketball, you can lose those bye-win games, but he was outstanding. And, you know, on my pregame show that I did over on my Hogville Net Hoops and Hogville Net channel, I said, this guy's probably, if I had to pick a guy that will be the X factor, it's going to be Carter Knox. He loves playing Texas Tech. You know, the 20 points in the Sweet 16, he made all 4 of his 3 attempts. He missed his first 3-point shot attempt on Saturday, and then he proceeded to make the last 3 that he took. So he only missed 1. So he's 7 of 8 in 2 games from distance against Tech, but another 20-point game. Oh, look, 6 rebounds, big, but a couple of blocks in the paint that were just, one at the rim that was just nasty after Malik Thomas got blocked by Toppin on the other end and Tech tried to run out. And then Knox comes in and just swats the ball down hard like a volleyball spike. I had another block shot in the paint, but 2 blocks, two steals in this game. I mean, you talk about both ends impact. And Carter Knox is he is physical, big frame. He's always been a smart shot taker. He has struggled to acclimate. We keep saying it. It's not that he's not as good as he was. He's probably better even than he was a year ago. We just haven't seen it play out yet in games that matter. And Calipari that's the first thing he talked about in the postgame presser. He said, I've spent the last 2 weeks on Carter convincing him not to worry about other players or what the expectations are for you coming into the season. Just play with joy, go have fun, and just go play, you know. And he played all right. Look, you had a 3-headed MVP monster, if you really want to break it down that way, because he was, you know, again, Brazil had a huge second half, did some good things in the first half. Akuff, a little slow started this game. Knox was on point throughout. He led Arkansas scoring in the first half with 12 points, followed it out with 8 in the second half. I mentioned some of those big plays and some of that coming down the stretch. I just thought when I really look back at this game, this could be a breakout for this season for Carter because he didn't look like a preseason All-SEC second team pick. He looked like a first teamer. I mean, all 3 of them did.
Yeah, I mean, those 3, like you said, carried the team yesterday. It was everybody. Everybody was doing everything right. Lots of hustle plays from Billy Richmond III. Yeah. We've talked about him a ton on the show so far. But everyone was doing their part. They looked like a well-oiled machine.
I think so. And, you know, the recent rise of Malik Ewan, it's a little bit subtle because Arkansas has not figured out yet a way to get him where he needs to be defensively and consistently to get him up between 20 and 24 minutes. But if you look at his production, getting 16, 17, 18 minutes, I mean, he had the 12-9 game against Louisville in 16, 17 minutes. He had another 9 points and 5 or 6 rebounds against Fresno State. And then in this game, 9 points, 4 or 5 from the field, 6 rebounds, 4 on the offensive end, had a block shot, and he only played 18 minutes. So there are things that are infuriating sometimes with him. He does kind of shy away from physicality. but at the same time, he is an instinctive offensive rebounder, and that is huge. That sustains possessions. It keeps the other team from getting to the other end and getting shots up. It helps you. Some of these things are bigger than they might appear at a box score, but his ability to score around the basket, if he could just be a consistent player at both ends, I mean, there are times he gets caught flat-footed, either off drives at guards or you know, rotating on defense, whatever it takes. He's Once he starts to fully understand the assignment and buy in, he's a guy that can give Arkansas more minutes and more production. But his production per minutes is really, really elevated. And he's a high percentage efficiency guy because he's got great touch. Some of those shots he made were circus shots because he doesn't want to go up into someone or close to them. He's constantly fading, but you can tell he's done it all his life because he knows how to make those little trick shots. I mean, it looks like he's horizontal to the ground trying to get away from a defender, and he's flipping a shot up, and it's got the touch to go in. But if he can learn to play a little tougher, I call it toughness, a little bit better with physicality, Brazil's taking steps in that direction. If Ewan does that and can do it in real time as we progress here before SEC play or getting into it, it makes Arkansas that much more a dangerous team because right now, Darius Akuff and Brazil are pretty much clicking.
Yep. Speaking of games coming up, they have Queens up next, a midweek game, and then they have a really big game against Houston. But we were talking about this a little bit before we even started the episode of this Queens game is still really important for Arkansas to maintain their identity, work on a couple of the things that they may feel like they're kind of slipping back into old habits of before they face Houston.
Yeah, you're always leery. I mean, it's a bye game, 5-5 team. Arkansas can have an off night and should still win. But again, college basketball, you can lose a game like this. It can be looked as a trap game. So you just want to continue to check those boxes in the decision-making department. I think that's the key with this team. It's interesting. I should have said this earlier, Ailey. I'm going to throw it out now. Calipari has said that the success of this team and the way that it does things is kind of random. And if you use that word, it also kind of means there's not an identity yet. It's interesting because as a team, Arkansas keeps flip-flopping in the KenPom efficiency ratings. 1 week, your defense is your strength and you're ranked higher in defense and efficiency relative to your offense. After yesterday's game and scoring 93 points and Texas Tech, other than the second half, first half especially, Arkansas's defense has now slid a bit in those efficiency rankings. And so Arkansas' success is random, whether you're looking at it from an individual player standpoint or what the team does game in and game out to help itself win games. It's not always the same formula. I think one truth, though, and Arkansas needs to remember this, is that this is an attack the paint, get to the rim, get to the free throw line team. So while there may be some randomness, and you're going to have some nights where you're taking 33s and you might hit some, Arkansas's two best wins, Louisville and Texas Tech, 18-point three-point attempt, 18 three-point attempts against Louisville, only 19 against Tech. You hit 10. That's elite percentage, 18 and 19 attempts. Losses against Michigan State and Duke where you could have won, 28 attempts, 30 attempts. The further you get away from what your best basketball is, the more you leave the door open and not finishing the game right and not winning. Arkansas, so they can be random as hell, but they better figure out this is a formula. It's not to say that they won't have some wild night where they can't miss and they keep taking them and they beat a good team. That's not consistently going to work for them. So I throw that out there. Juxtaposition, the randomness, the lack of true team identity. Is it defense? Is it offense? What is it? But I do think one thing that is a truth for this, the way this was recruited and roster was constructed, Arkansas needs to attack that paint all the time and let three-point shooting feed off of that. Play inside out, not outside in.
Arkansas's success is random. I love that. You should trademark that. That's great.
Well, Calipari said it. I'm just borrowing his own phrase. Yep. He should trademark it. He's got everything else. Might as well. I mean, I'm just borrowing it. I didn't ask his permission, but we get to talk about what he talks about. And but I agree with it because I'm looking, again, the efficiency ratings have been like a yo-yo. A lot of that's because it's a small sample size and you're still figuring out who you are. But I do think I'm still not sure. Arkansas, we see they struggle with guys like Boozer and Toppin. There's other good bigs. That front line against Florida, Arkansas is not going to see that until late February. But your roster is your roster, and so you need guys like you, and that's why I'm bringing it up. Get a little tougher. You need to find a way to get Nick Pringle to play his best version of himself at some point. He's really struggled yesterday. So physicality in the paint. That Arkansas, just because it's playing better doesn't mean they've solved that yet. There's other things. So yeah, but I think it is. I think it is random. I think Calipari's right. He knows his teams. That's the one thing about the guy. He's not going to tell you something that doesn't equal out to and measure up to what you're seeing. He calls it like it is. Now, he's optimistic about players sometimes, and some of us haven't seen quite yet what he has day in and day out in practice. Eventually we do, and we're like, oh, okay. He wasn't wrong. You know, he wasn't just saying something to pump somebody up. He's calling balls and strikes.
Yep. Well, I can't wait to see the random success that Arkansas has against Queens. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us as always.
Thanks, Ailey. Good to be with you again. Thank you.
More Pig Trail coming up after the break.